Today on Realist History, we're going to discuss U.S. imperialism in Latin America. Okay. In this particular section, you will hear some of the things that I think you have probably heard before when it comes to U.S. foreign policy, like the Roosevelt corollary. Some of y'all may have heard that. You may have heard the Monroe Doctrine. You may have heard uh, big stick diplomacy. Okay, guys, say that shit slowly now. All right, so we're gonna get into all that shit, and it's gonna partly explain why so many Latin American countries feel some type of way about the United States of America. It's gonna partly explain why so many Latin American countries struggle financially, you know, because of the policies that we implemented to kind of keep them weak, you know. But we'll get into all of that. All right, but before we do, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I am your homeboy first, and this is the realest, most entertaining show in the game. Put it on something. Again, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the share button. Put all your people on. Also, feel free to join the channel so you can enjoy all rights and privileges of any other member of the channel. Okay. But let's not waste any time. Let's go ahead and get straight to this work. All right. Let's get straight to it. All right. Today, we're going to examine what happened to Puerto Rico and Cuba after the Spanish-American War. Okay. Puerto Rico is big online right now because Bad Bunny was selected as the Super Bowl halftime performer this year, and a lot of people are pissed off about that, but we're going to see. We're going to see why Puerto Rico is a part of the American empire. Okay, let's go. We're going to analyze the effects of Roosevelt's big stick diplomacy. We're going to compare Wilson's moral diplomacy with the foreign policies of his predecessors. And we're also going to talk about Taft's dollar diplomacy. Okay, I don't want to miss out on that. So we're going to do all of that and more. All right, so let's get into some of the key terms and people, all right, that y'all are going to see in this section. All right, so the Foraker Act established civil government in Puerto Rico with an appointed governor. All right, Platt Amendment was an addendum to Cuba's constitution, restricting Cuba's independence from the United States. Okay, I'm gonna give y'all some details on that. Big stick diplomacy, that was Theodore Roosevelt's approach to international relations that depended on a strong military to achieve its aims. The Panama Canal was a waterway dug across Panama to shorten the trip between the Atlantic and the Pacific. Y'all have been hearing a lot about the Panama Canal from Trump when he was criticizing Jimmy Carter. All right, Roosevelt corollary. Roosevelt's addition to the Monroe Doctrine, which stated that the U.S. would intervene in Latin America in order to prevent European intervention. All right, dollar diplomacy. This was President Taft's policy to encourage investment rather than use force in Latin America. All right, moral diplomacy. That was President Wilson's policy to encourage human rights and opportunity rather than act in our own self-interest in Latin America. And lastly, Francisco Pancho Villa. All right, he was a Mexican guerrilla and outlaw who eluded capture by General Pershing for 11 months in 1916 and 1917. So we're going to talk about all of that and more. Our big question is this: what actions did the United States take to achieve its goals in Latin America? All right, it reads: American entrepreneurs and political leaders called for an aggressive and exclusive role for the U.S. in Latin America. While beneficial to the United States, this approach engendered anti-American sentiment and instability in the area. Okay, and pardon that typo right there. Again, if you're new to this, I don't write these slides. These slides were the slides that accompanied the textbook that I used to teach out of when I was a U.S. history teacher. Okay, so I'm sorry about that typo that right there. That's in that slide. Your homeboy first didn't do that. All right, but let's keep it moving. And I want y'all to focus on this. Y'all see how it says while beneficial, these policies were beneficial to us, especially financially and militarily as well. But These policies made them motherfuckers not like us. And they contributed to Latin America being unstable. Facts only now. Let's go. All right, let's talk about Puerto Rico. The status of Puerto Rico. In 1900, the Foraker Act authorized a civil government for Puerto Rico. A governor would be appointed by the U.S. president. In the insular cases, the Supreme Court ruled that Puerto Ricans did not have the same rights or tax status as other Americans. Now, if y'all missed my realist history segment on the Spanish-American War, make sure you go back and watch that. Okay, well, I detail what what's called was nicknamed the Splendid Little War, and y'all see the consequences of the Spanish-American War, in which the United States was able to get Puerto Rico, to Guam, purchased the Philippines from Spain for $20 million, and made Cuba a protectorate. We're gonna get into that, the details about Cuba momentarily. But Puerto Rico became a part of the American Empire, y'all, and it's still that to this day. Puerto Rico is an American territory. Bad Bunny is an American. So it's like motherfuckers are saying that he's not an American because he speaks Spanish and he's Latino, and these motherfuckers don't want him performing at the Super Bowl. I saw some online that they're absolutely right. Yeah, I ain't saying no Paul McCartney performed at the goddamn Super Bowl. He ain't American. He ain't American. But he white, so you cool with that shit. That's one of y'all Beatles. You love them damn Beatles. Bad Bunny, a motherfucking American. Now, if you don't like the fact that he's an American, let Puerto Rico be independent. You ain't want to do that. You ain't want to do that then, you don't want to do that shit now. You know what I'm saying? And still won't get these folks statehood either. That's fucked up. That's fucked up. That's how it is. And it traces back to this. All right. Let's talk about Cuba. Cuba became independent in 1902. The Platt Amendment, again, that's an amendment to their constitution now, made it a protectorate of the United States, which retained the rights to, okay, approve or reject any treaty signed by Cuba, intervene to preserve order in Cuba, and lease military bases in Cuba. It says Cubans disliked the Platt Amendment, but accepted their status since they were protected by the U.S. Now, I want y'all to think about that. What would you do? What would you do? Because really, when you look at it, it says the Platt Amendment made Cuba a protectorate of the United States. Look at that word protectorate. You see the word protect in it, okay? So that basically means the United States was going to protect Cuba in exchange for the Cubans allowing America to have all this goddamn authority over them. Where the Cubans had to give up the power about the approval or rejection of treaties to the U.S. You know what I'm saying? The U.S. had the power to intervene in Cuba to preserve order if they thought shit was going on that was against U.S. interests. The troops can go in. The U.S. can lease military bases in Cuba. We became Cuba's daddy. And of course, there were many Cubans that didn't like that shit. But like it says, they went along with it because they were protected. What would you have done if you were alive then? If you were a Cuban, would you have been like, man, fuck all that shit. Fuck the Platt Amendment. We need true independence. Or would you say, hey, fuck it, shit. I know these motherfuckers all in our business, but at least we protect the decisions. In 1904, President Roosevelt added his Roosevelt Corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. Roosevelt saw it as America's responsibility to quote unquote civilize or uplift weaker nations. The U.S. would act as an quote unquote international policeman in the Western Hemisphere to prevent European intervention. He saw international leadership as a moral challenge the U.S. had to accept. Now, let me sip some drink real quick. Coffee. Yeah, I know your boy don't drink no more. Don't drink alcohol no more. You know what I'm talking about? And this is decaf goddamn coffee. My daughter don't play with me. All right. So let's pull up a world map real quick. All right, and let's talk about the Monroe Doctrine first, because if y'all gonna understand this, you gotta understand the Monroe Doctrine to understand the Roosevelt correlator, or understand his addition to the Monroe Doctrine. And before I pull up the map, let me show y'all James Monroe. Now, remember, this is U.S. history. What I'm teaching y'all is U.S. history from 1877 to the present. And James Monroe was the 5th president of the United States. So he's really outside the purview of this class. You know what I'm talking about? There he is, James Monroe, president from 1817 to 1825. Okay. But there's a thing about history, y'all. Some things from history live on. History explains today and can predict the future. That's why it's so goddamn important. All right, but this is James Monroe. So when you hear the Monroe Doctrine, it's making reference to this motherfucker right here. All right, now let's go to our map so you can see, so I can show y'all what he talking about with the Monroe Doctrine. Let's use this one right here. All right, now and find Europe. Okay, you're gonna see Europe. Or find Russia. You see Russia real big over there. And then you look to your left, you know, to my that's what's considered Europe. So in Europe, you got countries like the United Kingdom of Great Britain, you got Spain, you got France, you got Germany, you got Portugal, all these motherfuckers, you know what I'm talking about. And y'all know from around 1500 through the early 1900s, these motherfuckers going around the world taking over shit. Okay? They were. Yeah, I know Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, all that bullshit. You know what I'm talking about? These motherfuckers were going around the world taking over shit. The age of imperialism. Okay? But see, James Monroe, again, being a president in those early 1800s, and the United States was not the power that it is today, of course, not even the power that it was in the late 1800s, early 1900s, but, you know, just trying to be on the come up. And James Monroe was like, hey, we're here. The United States is the power on this side of the world. European countries, y'all don't need to come over here no more trying to take over shit. If y'all want to go to Africa and take over shit, do that. Fuck them. This Monroe, he's a racist piece of shit. He was an enslaver. So if y'all want to go to Africa and take over shit, fine, go do that. If y'all want to go to India and take over shit, you want to go to Australia, you want to go to other places in Asia, go over there. But don't come over here on this side of the world trying to take over shit, because we over here now and we run this side of the world. Okay, in the Western Hemisphere. Okay. Now this motherfucker, Theodore Roosevelt, was gonna take that Monroe Doctrine and like go take that bitch to another level. He gonna add some violence in it, okay? Because a doctrine ain't nothing but a policy, okay? And so Theodore Roosevelt is gonna add to that policy. He's basically gonna say, not only should y'all not come over here, talk to the Europeans, not only should y'all not come on our side of the world bothering shit, trying to take over shit. If you do, we gonna take that shit as an act of war, and we gonna get in his iron. You know, that's basically what he was on. You know what I'm talking about? We gonna intervene. If y'all come over here trying to fuck with some shit, oh no, we gonna step in. You know what I'm saying? So he adding some violence to it. I compare it to this. Let's say, let's say your mama tell you, all right now, curfew is 10 o'clock. You need to be back in here by 10 o'clock. Okay. That's her policy. That's her doctrine. And then daddy come through and add his little part on that bitch. He said, all right now, you heard your mama say you need to be back in this house, not on the way to the house, but back in this house by 10 o'clock. And if you don't, I'm gonna beat your ass. See how he added the violence in that bitch? That's his little addition. Daddy added his little addition to mama's policy. Okay? Well, that same shit Theodore Roosevelt did to the Monroe Doctrine. It's the same shit. Stay from over here. You know what I'm talking about? We run shit on this side of the world now. Stay the fuck from over here. But Theodore Roosevelt's adding in, if you do bring your ass over here, we gonna get in this iron. Okay? We gonna bust these guns at your ass. All right, so that's a Roosevelt corollary. Okay? He also got some racism mixed in that shit. Good old fashioned racism, of course, is mixed in there with him saying Roosevelt saw it as America's responsibility to civilize or uplift weaker nations. That's just racist. Okay. Like you got civilized these motherfuckers like they some savages or some shit, you know what I'm talking about? Like they need to be trained up by the white man, you know what I'm talking about? Also talking about the US would act as an international policeman in the Western Hemisphere to prevent European intervention. So acting like we got to police these people. You know what I'm talking about? They can't hold up for themselves, so we got to do it. You know what I'm talking about? See, talking about it's a moral challenge, you know, to police this side of the world. It was really just being greedy. Want to keep these motherfuckers from over here so we can, trying to keep the Europeans from over here so we can take advantage, so the U.S. government can take advantage of these Latin American nations economically. Also, trying to keep some of these powers from over here because that would make us less safe. You know, if these European countries come over here and post up in one of them Latin American countries and then try to attack us from this side of the world, you know, that makes us less safe. So you had military aims and you had economic aims when it came to this uh Roosevelt corollary. All right, it says Roosevelt's policy was called big stick diplomacy from his motto, speak softly, but carry a big stick. Cartoonists saw Roosevelt as a policeman in Latin America. Okay. Now, that whole speak softly, but carry a big stick actually comes from Africa. It says it's an old African proverb. I don't know what part of Africa. Um, but based on what I read, it comes from Africa, and he adopted that shit. You know what I'm talking about? So speak softly, but carry a big stick, and the stick is a metaphor. You know what I'm talking about? It's saying in his case, you know, the stick is referred to the fucking military. You know, because the saying is saying, don't do all that goddamn talking, but be ready to whoop some ass if you need to whoop some ass. Okay, you ain't gotta do all that talking. You know what I'm talking about? And if you do talk, you ain't got to be loud, boisterous, anything like that. But if you need to whoop some ass, you need to be ready to whoop some ass. Okay? And in his case, that big stick is going to represent that goddamn military. And we talked previously about how he was building up the military. We talked about the Great White Fleet and all that kind of shit. Okay, so take a look at this cartoon here. All right, you see Roosevelt there. All right, you see the big stick in hand. He's on a battleship, and he's going to Panama. We're gonna talk more about that momentarily. Let's look at some other cartoons that I got for you here. All right, that'll bring this to life for you. Let's go right here. This is a good one. This is a good one. All right. So you see Roosevelt up there. He's on the battleship. Okay. You see a Latino down there representing the Republic of Santo Domingo. Okay. You see the European power right there. Look like they reaching for the Latino. You see that shit? And if you look real closely, the European king has some in his hand. You gotta look real close, and it said claims. You know what I'm talking about? So the Republic of Santo Domingo owed them some money, and so the Europeans wanted to get their money back up off their ass. But you see Roosevelt like, no, you ain't. Don't come over here trying to goddamn do nothing to them people to get their money back. And you said he got that gun pointed at him. He got that thing pointed at him. And on the end of the barrel, see, it says Monroe Doctrine. So you see how he reminding them of that Monroe Doctrine? Hey, stay your ass from over here now. Stay your ass from over here. Because see that Roosevelt corollary is, I'm gonna put that thing on you. Okay. So what ended up happening, the U.S. acted as a mediator in this situation, and the U.S. got the money back from the Republic of Santo Domingo and gave it to the European country that they had to claim against Santo Domingo. All right, again, trying to make these motherfuckers stay from this side of the world so the United States clearly remains the preeminent power over here. Let's look at another one. All right. In this one, you see Roosevelt marching through the Caribbean, okay, with his big stick in hand and dragging along those battleships, okay, clearly showing that the U.S. runs shit on this side of the world. Okay, I think you can see on one battleship it says debt collection. I think down there in the little writing you see Santo Domingo. Okay, so it's clearly showing who runs shit over here, and it's the U.S. of A. So right here you got Teddy Roosevelt dressed up as a police officer and as old school police uniform. All right, you got the big stick right there. It says the new diplomacy, and he's standing in between Latinos on the left and then the Europeans on the right. And so the goddamn Europeans, they can't come over here and try to do shit to the Latinos because the international policeman, Teddy Roosevelt, is right there. So y'all see, I know some of you wonder, God damn, why America always another motherfucker's business, man? God damn. Well, that ain't nothing new. Ain't nothing new. Goes back a long time. You know, we've had ebbs and flows of it, but sometimes we do try to pull back, you know. But obviously, under Theodore Roosevelt, that wasn't one of them goddamn times. Okay. Especially when it came to Europeans trying to intervene on this side of the world. All right. All right, let's go. It says the Panama Canal was constructed between 1904 and 1913. The U.S. needed permission from Colombia, which owned the Isthmus of Panama. Colombia wanted more money than the United States was willing to pay. Roosevelt encouraged Panamanian rebels to declare independence. The United States recognized the Panamanian government in 1904. Roosevelt negotiated to lease the canal zone from the new Panamanian government for $10 million plus an annual rent. Okay. This was some gangster shit. Okay. Let's look at this. Let's go back to our world map. All right. You see us on the map there, United States of America. All right. And there was a need for a canal. A canal being an artificial waterway, a man-made waterway. Okay, so we needed a way to get from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean and vice versa without having to sail all the way around the tip of South America. Okay, that costs more money, more time consuming, all that. So let's go to another map. I want to show y'all Central America. You should be able to see on this map the thinnest part where it might be possible to carve a way through and connect the Pacific and the Atlantic. You should be able to see that where that is right there on the map. But I'm gonna find a map that's kind of zoomed in for y'all. All right, if you take a look down there, I'm gonna try to look near the bottom of this map. Okay, you're gonna see Panama down there, right next to where it says South America. Okay, so Panama used to be under control of Colombia. Okay, so what that slide was telling you is the United States was trying to negotiate with Colombia, to be able to go carve out the Panama Canal right there. Okay, because that's the thinnest land right there. Still gonna be a massive undertaking, but it looks like really the only place that you can feasibly do it. You know what I'm talking about? But Colombia wanted more money than we were willing to pay. So what did America do? Said, fuck y'all then. We gonna make the Panamanians break away from you motherfuckers, okay? And so once they rebelled, our military helped their ass out and helped them get their freedom so we can negotiate with them for the price that we wanted and build a goddamn canal. That's some street shit. That's some street shit, y'all. Straight up. Straight up. But that's what happened. Okay. And it says construction of the canal was a tremendous engineering feat that involved tens of thousands of workers. Okay, a lot of folks died down there building this shit, especially from, I want to say it was malaria, carried by mosquitoes. Some mosquito-borne illness was killing a lot of motherfuckers down there. Okay, don't quote me on what it actually was, but I just know mosquitoes were leading to a lot of motherfucking getting murked down there. And as a Mississippi man, I know something about these goddamn mosquitoes. The mosquitoes a bitch, boy. So you can only imagine doing some work like this down there in that area, the humidity and all that kind of stuff. And you can only imagine the back-breaking work of literally carving through land. You know what I'm talking about, to create this motherfucking marvel. But they got it done. They got it done. All right. In 1909, William Howard Taft became president. He replaced the big stick, which was unpopular among Latin Americans, with dollar diplomacy. Rather than emphasizing military force, Taft looked to increase American investments in plantations, mines, and railroads. Taft did not dismiss the use of force as he sent troops into Nicaragua in 1909 and 1912. Okay, so dollar diplomacy is clear. Okay, focus on this money. William Howard Taft wanted American businesses to invest down there so they can make money. You know what I'm talking about? And a lot of them did. But as it also says, Taft was willing to use that iron too. Okay. And so y'all kind of see what I'm saying? These Latin American motherfuckers know that they got history too. These folks study the history of their countries and they see what the fuck we were doing. You go from one motherfucker that's like, we just gonna goddamn use this iron on y'all ass. And then you got this next motherfucker like, okay, we gonna make some money with y'all ass, and I'm gonna use the iron too if need be. But now let's see what Wilson gonna do, okay? It says President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed a new policy of moral diplomacy in 1913. I don't know why that comma is in there, but the motherfuckers that made this slide, they fucked up, okay? But his policy supported human rights and national integrity rather than the U.S. self-interest. He stated that the U.S. needed to be a friend, even when it was not in our best interests. Okay. He promised the U.S. would never again seek one additional foot of territory by conquest. So you see how he making it seem like, oh, we gonna start treating Latin American motherfuckers right. You know what I'm talking about? Let's promote human rights there, even though that bitch wasn't really promoting human rights here because he was a flaming fucking racist who supported segregation. Okay. See the hypocrisy of America. God damn it. Shit. But he was like, oh, we need to be good neighbors to them. We need to be friends to them. All right. We don't need to conquer any more territory. All right. So you got all these different ways that these presidents were dealing with these motherfuckers down there in Latin America. But now check this shit out now. Okay, y'all just saw Wilson talking about, hey, we just gonna be good friends with y'all. You know what I'm talking about? Moral diplomacy. We gonna do right by y'all, all that kind of shit. And look at this. Despite his intentions, Wilson wound up intervening in Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and especially in Mexico. Mexican dictator Porfirio Diaz promoted American investment in Mexico, benefiting a small, wealthy upper class of landowners, clerics, and military men. Meanwhile, poor Mexican farmers were struggling in extreme poverty. So what happened? This happened. In 1911, a revolt by Francisco Madero toppled Diaz. 2 years later, General Victoriano Huerta seized control and executed Madero. Wilson refused to recognize a quote unquote government of butchers. When American sailors were arrested, he sent U.S. Marines into Mexico. Huerta's government collapsed, and he was in turn replaced by Venustiano Carranza. The famous outlaw Francisco Pancho Villa threatened to start a new rebellion. See, a lot of shit going on down in that bitch. You know what I'm talking about? A lot of shit going on. Check this out. In 1916, Villa participated in raids across the U.S. border, leaving 18 dead. Wilson sent General J. Pershing and 10,000 troops into Mexico to catch Villa, but failed. Now, look, basically, y'all, to sum all this shit up. Okay, let's go back. So you had Diaz up there basically doing the U.S. bidding, okay, promoting American investment in Mexico, Diaz and his rich partners, you know what I'm talking about, the small wealthy upper class, they getting money. Meanwhile, most of the other Mexican motherfuckers poor as shit. So what they do, they revolted against his ass. Okay. Revolted against. So that led to Madero running shit. You know what I'm talking about? But then somebody took Madero, Huerta took Madero's ass out. So Wilson back looking like shit. We ain't got the person we fuck with down there. See, America was fucking with Diaz. Because Diaz was letting them get that money. You know what I'm talking about? So Wilson was like, I ain't finna recognize y'all government. I ain't finna acknowledge that y'all are motherfuckers in power and shit like that. You know what I'm talking about? And so Huerta, his government collapsed, and he ended up with Carranza down that bitch. And Pancho Villa was like, fuck all y'all. I'm finna start a new goddamn rebellion. And y'all see he fucked around and killed some US folks. You know what I'm talking about? So Wilson was like, oh shit, ain't no way you finna do this shit. You know what I'm talking about? Not only I'm finna get your ass, I'm about to send 10,000 of them boys to come get your ass. And they failed. Now, mind you, there's some serious shit going on in the world at this time. You know, in 1916, World War I was going on. World War I was 1914 and 1918. Now, in 1916, America wasn't in that shit quite yet, you know what I'm talking about? But war was raging overseas. And you got 10,000 American troops up here looking for Pancho Villa motherfucking ass. That's after Wilson was like, no, we ain't gonna do shit. You know, we gonna be cool with y'all, you know. Come on, man. It's a lot of history, y'all. You know, between us and Mexico and Colombia and Venezuela, you know, to my Nicaragua, all these goddamn countries. There's a lot of shit that y'all don't know nothing about that went on in the past. But I'm telling you, the past explains the present and can predict the future. All right. But that's another one, y'all. We knocked out another one. Let's go over our key terms one more again. All right, we talked about the FORCA Act, which established a civil government in Puerto Rico and appointed a governor. You know what I'm talking about? Because y'all know Puerto Rico is an American territory, and the United States, even though they won't give them statehood, the United States does have control over Puerto Rico. The Platt Amendment was an addition to Cuba's constitution that basically gave the U.S. power over Cuba without annexing Cuba. You feel me? And we talked about the Teller Amendment previously that said we were not going to annex Cuba. But that Platt Amendment to Cuba's constitution allowed America to approve or reject Cuban treaties, allowed America to intervene in Cuba if need be, and allowed America to lease military bases in that bitch. Again, making us Cuba's daddy. You know what I'm talking about? Big stick diplomacy, that's Theodore Roosevelt's foreign policy when it comes to Latin America, basically saying, hey, we are willing to use that military if we need to achieve what we want to achieve on this side of the motherfucking world. You know what I'm talking about? And, Panama Canal, that was a waterway dug across Panama, okay, to shorten the trip between the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. Y'all know, I told y'all we were on some funny business to be able to get the right to build that Panama Canal. You know, Panama used to be run by Colombia. Colombia didn't want to negotiate with us, right? You know what I'm talking about, in terms of the number that we wanted to pay, you know what I'm talking about, to be able to access the land, to be able to build the Panama Canal. So we were like, fuck y'all. We'll make Panama break away from y'all. And if y'all try to fuck with them, we gonna send some troops down there to help they goddamn ass. And so when Panama broke away, shit, we negotiated with them, got the rights to the canal zone, built that shit, and you know, were able to use it. You know what I'm talking about? And we're gonna keep the control of the canal zone all the way until Jimmy Carter gave it back to Panama. And y'all know Trump is saying, fuck that. We need to take control back because we built it. Okay, Roosevelt corollary, that was Teddy Roosevelt's addition to the Monroe Doctrine. Remember, I told you the Monroe Doctrine was James Monroe, president of the United States from 1817 to 1825. That was his way of saying, hey, y'all stay from on the side of this world, talking to the Europeans now. Y'all stay from on this side of the world. United States run shit over here. But Roosevelt was like, let me add something to that. If y'all don't stay from over here on this side of the world, we're going to put that fire on your ass. Okay, we're going to put that fire on you. All right. Dollar diplomacy. That was President Taft's policy to encourage investment down in Latin America. He wanted U.S. corporations and businessmen and shit to get money down there in Latin America. You know what I'm talking about? But again, he was using force too if need be. And moral diplomacy. That was Woodrow Wilson's policy toward Latin America. Talking about we gonna encourage human rights and we gonna treat y'all right. We ain't gonna take over no more y'all shit. You know what I'm talking about? But what he ended up doing, he used force too, goddamn it. And lastly, Francisco Pancho Villa was that Mexican outlaw. You know what I'm talking about? He ended up murking some Americans. And so Woodrow Wilson sent them boys after his goddamn ass trying to get on him. You know what I'm talking about? But hey, them 10,000 troops couldn't catch him. All right. So we knocked out another one, y'all. Knocked out another one. And you know, I appreciate y'all so much for being here with me for another realist history. It is so important, so incredibly important that we educate ourselves and educate our children, you know what I'm talking about? And because these are very trying times, but when things are hard, goddamn it, you got to go harder. Okay. And that's what we're gonna continue to do here on the realest, most entertaining show in the game. Put it on some. I appreciate you watching. I think you'll enjoy these other videos too. So check them out now.